What was your title and how did you earn your title in the war?
In the Marine Corps, I was a corporal. I was an administrative clerk, and I worked at a Marine Corps helicopter facility in Santa Ana, California.
So what kind of stuff did you do?
I was basically a captain's clerk when we were the base personnel at that helicopter facility. The Marine Air Group that was there was MAG 36, Marine Air Group 36, and this was at a period of time between the Korean War and the Vietnam War. So we weren't really in a fighting status at that time.
Okay.
The Korean War benefits ended in '55, and the Vietnam benefits began in '61. So I served '57 to '60. So I just happened to be in that window when there was no real war being waged.
What were some of the first changes in your life that were made when you started working for
When I started working,
military?
well, I actually worked a year before I went in the Marine Corps. I worked in a butcher shop in Belleville, Michigan. I was what you would call a butcher apprentice. And then I went into the Marine Corps. I got out of high school in '56 and went in the Marine Corps in '57. Then to continue on with my life, I joined the Detroit Police Department in 1961. And I served there from 1961 to 1986. Then I moved to Milford in '87.
Did you have worthwhile experiences while you were in the Marine Corps, and if you had any, do you want to share some?
Well, basic training is for everyone. Everyone does the same thing. I had a boot camp class of 75 people, and at the end of 4 months or whatever period of time of training we did, we all went our separate ways. Some went overseas, some went to embassy duty. But again, I initially was assigned to Camp Pendleton, and I stayed there for several months until the clerical billet opened in the helicopter facility. And that's where I ended up working.
What do most of the kids our age would know about the military in your generation?
Well, if your goal is to be a pilot, you should probably try the military. I would say the best service branch, if you want to be a pilot, is the Navy. They get extremely great training, and they become your pilots of the future. But there are all kinds of schooling opportunities in the military. A lot of times you have to apply for them, and whatever your skill level is. But most of the kids around here, I would suggest before they ever think of the military, you should have your associate's degree from a community college before you apply for the military, because it gives you a leg up on the competition. And if you study languages, that gives you another leg up on the competition, because that's the first question they ask you in the military, is if you know a second or third language. Language skills are greatly sought in the military.
Can you tell us what these are?
One of them is my honorable discharge that everyone wants to see, and as you can tell, I was a Corporal E3, and I was discharged in 1963, but that means that I served 3 years of active duty and 3 years in the inactive reserves. So I served a total of 6 years, but only 3 years of it was in active duty. This is I went to a personnel administration course. This is when I got promoted to private first class, and this is when I got promoted to corporal. And those are issued to you by the military.
Okay, thank you for sharing with us.
You want to see any?
Okay, so my first question is, did you make any friends during training or during the war?
I made hundreds of friends, and I still have 30 or so today. They're still alive, they still live close by, and we are close friends because we shared so many difficult times.
What was your title?
I was a platoon sergeant, which is, in the Marines would be a gunnery sergeant. It's a Sergeant E7. There's 2 higher ranks than me in the enlisted, and then the next higher ranks are officers. And I was that for 26 years.
How did you earn that rank?
How did I end that way?
Earn.
Or earn it?
that rank.
My boss in 1975 or 76 was not a good leader, and so I was promoted 2 ranks in 3 days because I seemed to be a good leader. And so I went from a buck sergeant to a sergeant first class to a platoon sergeant in 3 days, and I stayed that for the rest of my career. I just fell into a good spot where the guy in charge of me wasn't doing a good job, and my bosses thought I did a good job, and I must have, because I stayed that rank for 26 more years.
Was there any weddings that happened during your guys' time in a different country or during the war?
No, because we were National Guard, we lived at home. Most of my time was not active duty, it was National Guard, but we got sent away to many places, so no weddings occurred when we were away.
What effect did this war have on your physical or mental health?
My mental health is still fine, but I got shot 3 times, once in Vietnam, once in Grenada, and once in Panama, and so I have problems with my body, but my mental health seems to be okay, but not my physical health. I have problems, but as we get older, we have problems anyway.
What would you like kids our age to know that you don't think we know?
The military can help you grow up. It can force you to think differently than as a juvenile. You have to be in charge of yourself, you have to be in charge of other people, and you have to think ahead, and you have to watch out for them, things that as a teenager we just didn't do.
Thank you.
Just because you're not ready yet. Well, thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so what was your age when you joined, your title, and your rank during the war?
I was 19 years old when I joined. I went into service as a PFC because I was a lieutenant colonel in the ROTC. So that's how I could become a PFC when I first went in.
Thank you. And then, what was training like? What was your specialty and job during the war?
Well, I took basic training in Fort Leonard, Missouri. I went from Fort Leonard, Missouri to Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And then I was assigned to Fontenay, France for 18 months from 1957 to 59.
Thank you.
What were your feelings before, during, and after the war?
What was my what?
What were your feelings before, during, and after the war?
Well, I wasn't in any wars. I was
Oh.
very fortunate not to be in a war. All I was in when I was in was the Algerian crisis, which we never had to shoot anybody or anything. So I was very fortunate not to be in. If I would have re-enlisted, I would have probably went to Vietnam.
Thank you. Do you know anyone who was injured during the war?
I've got relatives that were injured in Vietnam, but they had Purple Hearts.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I was very fortunate. I didn't go to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. What do you think kids our age should know about service members?
I think one thing you should learn is to learn to get along with other people before you go into the service, because being in the service is one thing that you will have to do is learn to take orders from people. And if you do not listen to your parents and know how to do things, you'll never learn, and if you go into the service, it's gonna be a hard time for you if you don't understand what you're getting into.
Thank
And
you.
that is one critical thing that I would recommend for all kids to learn to take orders, because when you get into service, whatever they tell you to do, you should do it. If you don't, you're gonna get court-martialed.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
No, you're warm welcome, and I hope someday you don't have to go in unless you wanna go in. When I went in, I volunteered for the draft, but I went in as an enlisted reserve, so I volunteered to go in. And you can do the same thing because the military is good for you. You can get a good career, and you can learn a lot of different things. So, if you get the chance, go in,
Okay.
all right?
What effect did the war have on you physically?
I was not exactly in the war. I'm considered a Korean War veteran, but the fighting was all over, and I spent all my time in the States. So I didn't get over into the fighting at all, but I was considered part of that group of veterans.
So, what effect did it have on you mentally?
Well, you know, I'm looking at the war from a different perspective, so I actually enjoyed my time in the service. And, you know, had I been over in Korea fighting, I would probably have an entirely different mindset for that, so.
So, what was your title?
I started as a mineman, or a sailor as a recruit, and then I ended up being a second class mineman when I mustered out.
So, how did you have to, what did you have to do to earn that title?
Well, it required a lot of study. They have a study program where they send you the books, and then they send you a test, and you turn the test in, and if you pass, you can move up in most cases, but not all. Some ratings are full, and people don't move very fast. My rating happened to be wide open, so I passed the test and moved up. So.
And then, what do you wish kids our age would know about the military service of your generation?
Well, we were fortunate the Korean War veterans were welcomed back home. Now, originally the Vietnam veterans were not. So it was a lot better experience for the Korean War veterans. That's about it.
Thank you.
So, when were you born and where were you born and raised?
I was born July 5th, 1945 in Detroit, Michigan.
What kind of training were you given?
For the military? Well, I received a lot of training, infantry training, medical training, demolitions training.
Okay, my question is, what effect did the war have on you physically and mentally?
That's a tough question, because I think that physically it makes you stronger. Mm-hmm. Mentally it makes you stronger, because you have to be that way for your colleagues, your veterans that are you're serving with, you know. Mm-hmm. Mentally, you carry a scar of war with you all the time. And the people that you lose, the people that you love, the people that you fought alongside of.
Okay, and then my other question was, what was your most memorable experience in the war?
There are a lot of memorable experiences, so I'll give you a fairly good one. The bad ones we don't like to repeat. Christmas Eve. We're getting set for a nice evening with steak, beer, and a nice movie. So all the gentlemen in our company were ready to go and hit the screens, and all of a sudden the sirens go off. We think, well, this is just a random thing. the movie comes on and it's John Wayne and the Green Berets. That's just what we want to see when we're in Vietnam, right? That we're getting hit with mortar rounds. So that was our Christmas Eve.
So did you end up like being able to celebrate?
I celebrated in a bunker system until about 3 o'clock in the morning. In the dark.
Wow.
We said a few prayers. Maybe a lot of prayers.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
What do you wish people our age knew about what you were going through back when you were going through
Another
that?
very good question, yeah. Well, the first thing is that our service was to our country. Maybe we reverse that a little bit today and say God and our country and their families. And that we wish that most people would understand that the war that I was in, Vietnamese War, it was because our country called us to duty, not because we wanted to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.